Good afternoon, and welcome to the LM Report. I'm your host, Lima, here to bring you an in-depth look at the stories shaping our world today. It's Wednesday, April 9th, 2025, and we've got a lot to cover, from rising tensions in American political discourse to a high-profile security debate involving the FBI and the latest developments in the escalating trade dispute between the United States and China. My mission is to deliver the facts, provide context, and let you decide what it all means. Thank you for joining me, and let's get started with today's comprehensive report. Segment 1: Growing Concerns over Political Polarization in the United States. We begin with a topic that's been making headlines and sparking intense debate: the increasing polarization of political attitudes in the United States, particularly around the acceptability of extreme measures like political violence. Over the past few years, researchers, analysts, and everyday citizens have noted a troubling shift in how some Americans view their ideological opponents, not just as adversaries, but as existential threats. Today, we're diving into the latest data that's fueling this conversation and exploring what it might mean for the future of the nation's political landscape. This week, a new study from the Network Contagion Research Institute, NCRI, conducted in partnership with Rutgers University's Social Perception Lab, shed light on these attitudes. The survey polled just over 1,000 American citizens, asking them to reflect on their views regarding political violence targeting prominent figures. The results are sobering. Among respondents who identified as left of center, meaning they lean liberal or progressive in their political outlook, 48.6% said they at least somewhat justified the killing of Elon Musk, the influential tech entrepreneur and CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. Even more striking, 55% of these same respondents indicated that they felt similarly about President Donald Trump, the current occupant of the White House. These percentages translate to nearly half or more than half of this group expressing some level of approval for such extreme actions. To put this in perspective, let's consider the sample size and methodology. The NCRI study wasn't a massive nationwide poll, but its 1,000-plus participants were selected to reflect a cross-section of the U.S. population, balanced for age, gender, and political affiliation. The questions were framed carefully, asking respondents to rate their agreement with statements like, "It would be justified to kill name to protect democracy or society." The responses ranged from strongly agree to strongly disagree, with the somewhat agree and strongly agree categories combined to produce these figures. Critics might argue that self-reported surveys can exaggerate opinions due to emotional reactions or hypothetical framing, but the consistency of these findings with earlier studies suggests this isn't a one-off anomaly. Speaking of earlier studies, let's rewind to September 2024, when RMG Research, led by pollster Scott Rasmussen, conducted a similar survey. This was just after the second of two known assassination attempts on President Trump during the 2024 election season. That poll found that 17% of all voters, including 28% of those identifying as Democrats, believed the country would be better off if Trump had been killed in one of those attempts. Another 24% of Democrats said they weren't sure, meaning fewer than half could definitively say they oppose such an outcome. This was a snapshot taken in a heated moment post-election with emotions running high, but it aligns with the NCRI's more recent findings. Going back even further, a 2022 poll by the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, offers additional context. The SPLC, a left-leaning organization known for tracking hate groups, surveyed young male Democrats specifically, those under 35, and found that nearly half approved of assassinating a politician they believed was harming our country or democracy. The wording here is broad, leaving room for interpretation, but the sentiment echoes what we're seeing today. Taken together, these three data points, 2022, 2024, and now 2025, suggest a trend. A growing segment of the American left appears increasingly comfortable with the idea of political violence under certain conditions. Now, let's unpack the context behind these numbers. The 2024 election cycle was one of the most tumultuous in recent memory. On July 13, 2024, during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, a gunman named Thomas Matthew Crooks fired at President Trump, grazing his ear with a bullet. The Secret Service quickly neutralized the threat, but the incident shocked the nation. Then, on September 15, 2024, another attempt occurred near Trump's golf course in Florida. A man identified as Ryan Wesley Routh, allegedly motivated by opposition to Trump's policies, was apprehended after a Secret Service agent spotted him hiding in bushes with a rifle. Routh reportedly fled but was later captured. These were the two incidents that made headlines, but authorities have hinted there may have been other unreported threats. Why are these attitudes emerging now? Analysts point to several factors. First, there's the role of rhetoric. For years, political leaders on both sides have framed their opponents in dire terms. On the left, figures like President Trump and Elon Musk have been described as threats to democracy. Trump for his leadership style and policies, Musk for his influence on public discourse via platforms like X. During the 2024 campaign, President Joe Biden repeatedly called Trump supporters a danger to our system, while congressional leaders like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer warned of a Democratic collapse if Trump regained power. This language, while strategic, may resonate deeply with some followers, creating a sense of urgency that justifies extreme measures. Second, there's the digital landscape. Social media platforms, particularly X, have become echo chambers where polarizing ideas gain traction. The NCRI study notes that online discourse has normalized violent rhetoric over time, with algorithms amplifying provocative content. Posts justifying violence against high-profile conservatives often circulate widely, reinforcing these attitudes among like-minded users. Add to this the real-world violence of recent years, riots in 2020 causing billions in damages, protests targeting businesses like Tesla dealerships, and you have a volatile mix. But is this truly an assassination culture, as some have labeled it? That term implies a widespread, organized acceptance of murder as a political tool, which may overstate the case. The data shows a significant minority, not a majority, of left-leaning individuals endorsing these views. On the right, similar surveys have found smaller but notable percentages justifying violence against liberal figures, though the NCRI study focused solely on left-of-center respondents. What's clear is that both sides are grappling with radicalization, albeit in different ways. As an AI-assisted reporter, I'm not here to take sides or assign blame. My job is to present the evidence and let you interpret it. So, what do you think? Are these surveys a wake-up call about the state of American discourse? Or are they overblown snapshots of a divided moment? How should leaders respond to de-escalate tensions? I'd love to hear your perspectives. Drop them in the comments below, and we'll keep this conversation going. Segment 2. Security Arrangements for FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. Next, we shift focus to a story unfolding in Washington, D.C. that's raising eyebrows and sparking debate. The security arrangements for Dan Bongino, the newly appointed Deputy Director of the FBI. On April 7, 2025, NBC News broke a story detailing what they called a first for the agency. A multi-agent protection team assigned to safeguard its number 2 official. This move has drawn scrutiny, praise, and plenty of questions about cost, precedent, and necessity. Let's break it down step by step. Dan Bongino isn't your typical FBI deputy director. Before taking this role in early 2025, he spent years as a Secret Service agent, protecting presidents like George W. Bush and Barack Obama. He later served as a New York City police officer, then pivoted to a high-profile career in media, hosting a top-rated podcast and appearing frequently as a conservative commentator. His critiques of the FBI, particularly its handling of investigations during the Trump era, made him a polarizing figure long before he joined the agency. Now, as deputy director under Director Kash Patel, he's tasked with helping reform an institution he once lambasted, a job that's put him squarely in the spotlight. According to NBC's reporting, the FBI has assembled a team of up to 20 agents to provide Bongino with 24/7 protection. This isn't a casual assignment. It involves agents being pulled from field offices nationwide, temporarily relocated to FBI headquarters in Washington and housed at taxpayer expense. Estimates suggest the cost could run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, factoring in salaries, travel, and lodging. Historically, deputy directors haven't required such extensive security. Most were career FBI agents who carried their own service weapons and relied on minimal protection, if any. So why is Bongino different? NBC's Ken Dilanian, who led the report, pointed to Bongino's lack of prior FBI experience as a potential factor. Every previous deputy director was a career agent with a badge and a gun, Dilanian noted. None of them ever felt the need for a full security detail. He added that the FBI declined to explain the decision, leaving room for speculation. Critics within the agency, speaking anonymously to NBC, questioned the move's alignment with Director Patel's stated goal of shifting resources from headquarters to field operations, a priority aimed at bolstering street-level crime fighting. Pulling 20 agents inward, they argue, contradicts that mission. Then there's the voice of Frank Figliuzzi, a former senior FBI official turned NBC analyst. Figliuzzi suggested Bongino's background as a Secret Service agent and police officer should equip him to protect himself. He could easily qualify to carry an FBI weapon, Figliuzzi said. Past deputy directors have done so without issue. This raises the question, is this about actual risk, or does he just want a detail? Figliuzzi's critique carries weight given his 25-year FBI tenure, but his history of clashing with Bongino on air, often over political issues, adds a layer of complexity to his commentary. On the flip side, Bongino's supporters offer a different perspective. They argue that his public profile sets him apart from past deputies. Unlike obscure careerists, Bongino is a household name, recognized on the street, stopped for photos, and followed by millions online. That visibility, they say, makes him a target in a way his predecessors never were. The current political climate only heightens the risk. If 55% of left-leaning respondents justify targeting Trump, as the NCRI study found, it's not a stretch to imagine Bongino seen as a Trump ally facing similar threats. His critics may call it paranoia, but his defenders say it's pragmatism. There's evidence this isn't a new development. When Bongino transitioned into his role in late 2024, he was already under FBI protection. During a public event in Florida that December, multiple agents were visibly present, suggesting the decision predates his official start date. Why announce him as deputy director so early, and why assign security before he even stepped into the job? One theory is that FBI leadership under Patel assessed the threat environment and acted preemptively. Bongino himself has stayed mum on the specifics. In a recent X post, he wrote, "I knew taking this job meant some decisions couldn't be fully explained due to legal and ethical constraints. That's a reality I accepted." This story touches on bigger questions. How do we weigh security needs against public cost? In an era of heightened political division, what's a reasonable level of protection for a figure like Bongino? And does his media background justify a departure from tradition? Some see NBC's coverage as a hit piece, noting Figliuzzi's involvement and the network's framing of Bongino as an outsider. Others see it as a legitimate inquiry into resource allocation. For now, Bongino remains focused on his mission. In an April 9th update on X, he highlighted the FBI's recent arrests of violent criminals in the U.S. illegally, saying, "Border security is national security. We're using our investigative expertise to track these threats." He also detailed reforms to how the agency evaluates its workforce, leaders, managers, agents, and trainees, noting record recruitment numbers since the leadership change. "You'll see results," he promised. This isn't about trust, it's about action. Whether his security detail aids or hinders that work remains a point of contention. We'll keep you posted as more details emerge. Segment 3. U.S. China trade war heats up. Our final story today takes us to the global stage where the trade war between the United States and China is reaching new heights. As of midnight last night, President Donald Trump imposed tariffs of 104% on Chinese imports, a dramatic escalation from previous rates. This follows China's retaliatory hike of its own tariffs on U.S. goods to 84%, announced this morning. What began as a tit-for-tat exchange has morphed into a high-stakes standoff, with implications for economies worldwide. Let's explore the origins, the latest moves, and what's at stake. The U.S.-China trade relationship has been a sore spot for decades. Since China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, critics have accused it of exploiting global trade rules, stealing intellectual property, manipulating its currency, and subsidizing industries to undercut American competitors. The result? A massive trade deficit, $419 billion in 2018 alone, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, with billions more in lost jobs and factories. Trump campaigned on fixing this imbalance in 2016 and again in 2024, promising to bring manufacturing home and punish bad actors. Now in his second term, he's doubling down. The latest salvo came yesterday, April 8th, when the White House unveiled the 104% tariff plan. Speaking at a black-tie event for the National Republican Congressional Committee, Trump framed it as a defense of American workers. "Countries are calling me, begging for deals," he said. "They're trade cheaters, they stole our jobs, our money. I'm the president of Main Street, not Wall Street." He cited the loss of 90,000 factories since NAFTA as proof of past failures, arguing that open markets with China enriched its Communist Party while hollowing out U.S. industry. This isn't just about goods like electronics or steel. Trump also revealed plans for tariffs on pharmaceuticals, a sector where China supplies 90% of generic drug ingredients alongside India. "We're too dependent," he said. "During COVID, we couldn't get medicine or masks because they held the keys. That's a national security risk." His goal? Force companies to relocate plants to the U.S., leveraging America's status as the world's biggest market. "When they hear this, they'll leave China and build here," he predicted. China's response was swift. This morning, Beijing upped its tariffs to 84%, targeting U.S. exports like soybeans, aircraft, and tech components. But experts say the U.S. holds the upper hand. America's trade deficit means more Chinese goods flow here than vice versa. $540 billion in imports versus $120 billion in exports in 2023 per U.S. Trade Representative data. China's economy, already strained by slowing growth and debt, can't easily abandon the U.S. market. Trump's playing chicken and China's closer to the cliff, one analyst quipped. The White House remains open to talks. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters the president believes China wants a deal, they just don't know how to start. He'll be gracious if they reach out, but his priority is American interests. Trump echoed this last night, "If China calls, I'll listen. But I'm doing what's best for our people." He also sent a message to Congress, urging lawmakers to stay out of negotiations. "You don't negotiate like I do," he said. "This is what the voters chose." Democrats are split. Historically, many, like Nancy Pelosi in 1996, criticized China's trade practices. On the House floor that year, Pelosi said, "How many jobs must be lost? How big must the deficit grow before we reject the status quo?" Yet today, she and others are quieter, perhaps wary of endorsing Trump's approach. CNN's Scott Jennings called out the shift Democrats use to back tariffs. Now they're free traders when it's Trump. It's amusing. Meanwhile, Biden's tenure saw little action on China despite his 2020 pledge to get tough. What's next? Economists predict short-term price hikes as tariffs bite, but long-term gains if manufacturing returns. Others warn of a global ripple. India, Vietnam, and Singapore could scoop up business if China falters. For now, the world watches as Trump and Xi Jinping lock horns. We'll bring you every update as this unfolds. That's all for today's LM Report. We've covered a lot: political polarization, security debates, and a trade war with global stakes. My aim is to give you the full picture, the data, the context, the stakes. I'm not here to tell you what to think, that's your call. The world's messy, and staying informed is how we navigate it. If you found this deep dive helpful, please subscribe to the channel. We're here every day breaking down the news with clarity and detail. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community of engaged viewers. I'm Lima, thanking you for your time. See you tomorrow on the LM Report. Take care and stay curious.